Hey everyone, welcome to Sociastrology. Today we're going to take a look at the Venus conjunction to Jupiter in Cancer that will be taking place on the 12th of August. So these two will be co-present in Cancer from about the 30th of July through August 25th, but their conjunction will go exact on the 12th. So this is a really wonderful transit that we're all going to be experiencing together, and so I want to go through it on a collective level, what we can expect to play out generally from this. But then I also definitely want to take this through sign by sign, because this should be bestowing a lot of really excellent energy, good luck in specific areas of our lives, depending on how it's lining up with our own charts and especially what house of our charts it's playing out in. So we'll start by taking a very nice, positive, good view of it, what we can expect to play out. I do want to mention what happened last time that we had these two conjunct in Cancer. And I think I have like 2 or 3 words of there might be a little bit too much of a good thing going on, but we'll do that and then we'll take it through house by house. So to start with, we do want to consider the context in which this is taking place. So a few days before this conjunction goes exact, and fortunately, perhaps while these two are co-present and able to help each other out a bit, we do have a direct opposition between Mars in Libra and Saturn in Aries. And this is unlikely to be the most comfortable thing. This is, generally speaking, going to be taking place in the first week and second week of August. So right after that opposition goes exact, and I went into that in the monthly horoscope, just shortly after that, we have these two going exact, and it should really feel like a light at the end of the tunnel. So I do really want to mention here, especially because of the fact that I am recording this and will publish this just shortly before that opposition between Mars and Saturn goes exact. If things feel a bit off right now, it should be clearing up quite a bit. And that's in part why I named the forecast for this month Extreme Shifts, because we strangely have one of the rougher aspects of the year playing out just before one of the nicest aspects of the year. So do expect a very pleasant 180 to be taking place quite shortly here. Another bit of context here, we also do need to keep in mind that we had a really big Mars retrograde that took place earlier in the year, actually started last year and bled into several months of 2025. That was quite annoying. A lot of us really were so ready for that to be over when it finally wrapped up. And then shortly after that, Jupiter entered this house and this sign. But now we have this really auspicious conjunction in this place. So it should really feel like, especially in our own personal lives, that some of the challenge, the difficulty, the obstacles that showed up for us around the end of 24 throughout the first several months of 2025 within that specific area of our lives should be really quite cleaned up at this point. But yeah, so generally speaking, this is a very optimistic conjunction. They have each other to support each other. Venus generally shows up as highly supportive of harmony, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, a sense of joy and pleasure, whether that be indulgent or aesthetic. And Jupiter brings with it a sense of order, cohesion, that things are going in the right direction, that we're generally universally supported, basically. It can be quite cerebral. It is very optimistic, but it does really love to work within the realms of wisdom, spiritual, social, emotional wisdom. And this is taking place in the sign of Cancer, which also has to do with a sense of belonging, a sense of being nurtured, cared for, a sense of feeling at home, connecting with family well. This is also a very emotionally rich as well as an intuitive and instinctive place in Cancer. And so we should feel that these areas of life for a lot of us are quite exalted throughout this period of time, in the sense of there being a cohesive community and family, whether biological or created, that we really desire to connect with, that we really desire to share good times with. One thing I am certainly hoping, given the global context of this, is that there's a sense of like a human family that we all belong to and that we should be watching out for each other. And so, yeah, this should feel like our connections with people are going over quite well. Maybe people feel less on edge than they have been recently, and especially, again, during the period of time of that Mars-Saturn opposition. It's very supportive, very nurturing. It may even lean a bit far into indulgence. I, for one, after this year, and then, of course, especially after that opposition, I think it might be nice for us to allow ourselves to indulge a little bit, to give ourselves a little bit more room for a sense of pleasure than we might usually. This should also be really supportive of a sense of joy and pleasure. So the things that we typically enjoy, the things that usually give us that sense of pleasure or belonging, a sense of connecting to it. Of course, for me, this is always music. It always shows up as music. I know that something's awry when I'm not quite enjoying music as much as I usually do, but this should be elevating that joy and that pleasure that we derive from the things that give us a sense of connection. So I would say, for instance, if there is a movie you really want to go see, if there is a market that you really want to check out, a festival, any of these, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, summertime kind of activities that seem like you might enjoy them, if they're taking place throughout August, really, I would say to go for it, because it should be even more enjoyable and you should be able to get a greater sense of richness out of that experience than usual. Now, this is also a very heartfelt, I would say even very sentimental alignment here in Cancer. So you may find that you're able to connect with people a little bit more earnestly, a little bit more vulnerably throughout this period of time too, while not feeling unsafe. That's one thing that we should also wind up seeing with these two, is that they should give us a sense of safety, security, comfort, like we are able to kind of let our guard down a bit, at least with some people. And that can certainly be plenty if we've had our guard up for quite a while and maybe have just been trying to work extra hard, trying to get things done, finding moments throughout this period of time where we can just connect with people, hear each other out, give each other support, give each other some sense of affirmation of the efforts that we've put into things. That should be especially meaningful to us and impactful. So this is really helpful for that sense of emotional healing. Like I said, with Mars having gone through this area earlier in the year, that can really put our guard up when that's in Cancer. And so we should be able to get a sense of healing around that. And especially of feeling aligned, feeling like things are unfolding in a good direction, like we have support for what it is that we're trying to accomplish, for what our vision is with Jupiter there. Venus is coming through and it's offering that a word of encouragement. It may even wind up connecting us with certain people that can help us with our vision, or people who have a vision of their future or a future that's very aligned with ours. Yeah, as I mentioned, this is also a major boon for creative appreciation. So I would also say if you have any creative projects that you've been considering putting out into the world, it would be really wonderful if you're able to do that. Perhaps especially around the 12th, you might want to push it a bit beyond like the 11th of August through the 25th. Should be good and fine, and that should be quite helpful for finding people who really appreciate it. And with these two in Cancer as well, that is our instincts. And so trusting your intuition with things rather than leaning into doubts or leading into any sort of inhibitions or holding back on certain things. If your intuition is saying that you're safe to express yourself, to connect with certain people, that should go over quite well throughout this time too. So Cancer is also this place of memory. Like I mentioned, home and family should be maximally supported throughout this period of time. This is a this is about as good as that Cancer area of the sky and of our charts can get. So it may even be wise if there's something that you've been avoiding with family, if there's something that you've been kind of holding back there, to just kind of open up, be honest about that. It should resolve better under this influence than you might otherwise expect. But I would also expect that we're going to be a flood with memories and visions of the past, probably more of the positive side of that. So there may be some sense of longing for a connection that we've had in the past or an experience that we've had, like simpler times. So nostalgia is going to be really big with this. And that could be really wonderful also with Jupiter here for guiding us forward. So what is it that's at the root of what we really enjoy of those memories? I think for a lot of us, we tend to look back and we'll think, oh, I miss that place or I miss that person or something like this. And really it's that sense of belonging or joy or simplicity that we're looking for in those moments. And so what are those emotions that are getting drawn up from that memory? Are we able to realize more of that without focusing on the specifics of the memory? Are we able to realize more of the emotion of that memory in our lives? It might take lowering our guards a bit more than we have in recent years, which I think for a lot of us is absolutely the case. I mean, I have moved to different places a few times since the whole COVID situation happened. And one thing I've recognized is that every place has changed in a similar way. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are a little bit more reactive and just kind of have become that way because of having to respond to that moment. And so it may feel kind of sad just knowing that none of the places, the communities that I've loved really exist anymore. But on the other hand, knowing what it is, the emotion, the satisfaction from those periods of time in life in those places with those people or whatever can still be realized. It just doesn't need to be realized in exactly the same way as it was. But the key to a lot of that then is healing. So there needs to be a lot of community healing from what we've experienced over the past decade or so. And I really hope that at least on a personal level with this in Cancer, we can push a little bit more in that direction. The world may not be normal, but maybe some of us can start to bring that back on a personal level. Sense of just being able to live life and not needing to overthink things or be defensive, draw lines and things like that. For a lot of us, this will also be working pretty strong on our empathy as well. There's a bit of a caveat to that I'll get to at the end, but this can have us really wanting to give to people, wanting to nurture people, take care of people, being very sympathetic to the difficulties or challenges that people are facing and wanting to contribute to alleviating that. And so that itself can also wind up fostering a greater sense of community if we wind up getting involved in our communities in certain ways or the globe, and therefore bring back a sense of community, family, belonging, the sense that we will be supported by those around us, by the world. And that's really a cyclically reinforcing experience to have, to give to others, to be sympathetic to others, to be understanding to others. There's nothing like that to reinforce to oneself that that's also something that you will enjoy, is people being understanding and supportive of you too. And so even when it seems like we are giving, that is a deeply mutually beneficial ability to connect to each other. It does always wind up supporting us and helping us in some way to be supportive and helpful to others. So these planets are also very strongly associated with a sense of abundance, material, emotional, spiritual. So for a lot of people, this should have us feeling like we're on pretty good footing, like we're able to grow from this place. that we're able to experience a sense of comfort. There could definitely be some specifically financial breakthroughs with this as well. With Venus here, Venus does speak quite directly to finance due to its association with Taurus. And Jupiter brings a sense of fortune, generally speaking, as well as expansion. And so very straightforwardly, this does indicate that kind of in the ether is an energy of financial abundance, and then also these other very important types of abundance, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. And so this can also represent the start of a really, really positive cycle here. And I do want to point out, we will get one more of these. So we're going to get another conjunction of Venus and Jupiter in Cancer next year, just before Jupiter leaves Cancer. So we've got a couple chances at this, but if you're able to intentionally start a cycle through, like around this period of time, particularly around the date of the conjunction, that would be absolutely wonderful. So this is an overwhelmingly very positive period of time for us, but here are the caveats. So the last time that we had the Venus-Jupiter conjunctions in Cancer was in 2001, 2002. And one of the things that I've mentioned a couple times with Jupiter in Cancer, and then I think I mentioned this also in the monthly with Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, is that we can be really drawn into that Cancer area. And so this can speak to a sense of tribalism and dedication to a specific group of which there are also then outsiders. So inside the group, outside the group. This is one of the things that comes up with the sense of family. And especially when there's any sort of a quote unquote threat or risk to that, either real or imagined, and perhaps especially when that gets hyped up by maybe not the greatest of actors. This can become quite extreme in its aggressive defensiveness. It is perceiving it as defensiveness, but especially if the threat is not as real as one would think it is, it actually ultimately is just aggression. And this is something that, of course, we wound up learning very shortly after, and due to a lot of what was stoked up in that 2001, 2002 timeframe. And what was interesting to me, so it was August 5th, 2001. So that's really close to what wound up happening and stoking up a bunch of tribalism and patriotism and so forth. But June 3rd of 2002 was the second conjunction that they had while Jupiter was in Cancer. And that was around the period of time where these stories, these made-up narratives about threats to the United States wound up pulling us into a major war of aggression. And so I would be quite cautious about that kind of thing repeating around this coming year. And so looking back at 2001, 2002, I'm not sure that this will be completely apparent at the outset of this conjunction in August, but we may see that energy of those two, that initiation point of that Venus, Jupiter in Cancer, be able to be stoked up and taken advantage of in the coming year, such that we're kind of already on a course of utilizing that in not the greatest way by the time of the next conjunction, which is going to be next June. And while this isn't totally unheard of, we do have the conjunction, the first one, August 2001, now August 2025. The second conjunction, June 2002, June 2026. So that's a little bit on the nose. And so it might be wonderful if we can try our best to set our intention ahead of time with this transit for it to create a sense of genuine and relaxed safety, security, comfort, belonging, a sense of human family, not drawing lines not getting put into this group and that group and that group. I do have to say, seeing this on the heels of that Mars-Saturn opposition, I don't love that as something of an omen, if I were to take it that way, which I usually do. We will also, right in the middle of this cycle, it's sometime in April, we'll also get a Mars-Saturn conjunction, and that's going to take place in Aries. So there are some moments here that look to me like dividing lines could get into the mix here. And I'm hoping that we can do our best to avoid that kind of thing and maybe even preach a bit around hopefully others not getting sucked into that kind of thing either. And maybe this goes differently. I know that I was doing that last time in 2002, you know. A lot of us were, so many of us were. But even though it didn't wind up kind of going in the best way from that point, it did help to plant some seeds of doubt around that wound up encouraging a lot of people to not go along with just accepting that that kind of aggression was normal. So maybe we can at least get some of that out of this. Not to mention by working together along those lines, this may wind up leading to something of a peace movement, like wound up coming out of the early 2000s as well. But yeah, that is my main caveat when it comes to this. But on the whole, it looks quite good and quite solid. It should be really incredibly helpful to us in the areas of our chart where we have Cancer. If we have any placements that are in the middle degrees of cardinal signs or water signs, this should also be tapping us directly into that and encouraging the best out of those placements of ours too. But yeah, I think that is a lot of what I wanted to say about this conjunction. So I'll go into the sign by sign now. And before I do, I want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me. And if you don't mind hitting the thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate that. It helps the video to spread around. And do consider subscribing for future videos. I would love to have you here. And thank you so much to the members of this channel for your support. Angel Nibluck, Michelle Howell, JJ, Deborah K. Leavitt, Gary A., Startlingly True, Patrick McKenney, Jody, Anne Marie, C. Rezer, Peace Out, Maria Cyril Hyro, Rachel Windholtz, Lisa S., Aya, The Z-Man 1291, Lynn Newman, Long T Standing, The Nelson Cat Maya, Connie DiMartino, Dolly Geezy, Mango JT, B Love, Grace, Psyche Lloyd, Noah, Aquarian, Antiquarian, Susan Martin, Jonathan Mason, Chad Wiseman, Ezekiel David LaRosa, On the Road, Adrian K., Chris Wall, Light Warrior 999, Astrology Party, and Samuel Poppin. Thank you all so much for your support and much love to you all. And with all of that said, let's get into the sign by sign. Okay, so for Aries, we have Venus and Jupiter in your 4th house from the end of July to the end of August. And so we want to keep in mind that it's spread out a bit. It's not just the exact conjunction. You've got them co-present. So it should be generally a very wonderful month when it comes to 4th house matters. So this has to do with home, real estate, family, your sense of roots, rootedness, your own core. So you may find some really wonderful luck through real estate, through family, through home throughout this period of time and feeling quite connected there. You may feel like, especially a homebody throughout this period of time. I would not be surprised by that, but it should be quite pleasurable to be at home, to spend time perhaps even beautifying, redecorating, doing some home improvement stuff at home as well. You may have some kind of home-based craft that you are developing around this time too. If there's something you've been thinking about, this would also be a really wonderful time to kick that off. And again, especially if we can aim for after the 11th of August so that we can avoid the exact opposition between Mars and Saturn. So you should feel a lot more supported within your family than usual, or at least more comfortable with that. For instance, if you are estranged from family, you may feel very much at home in your neighborhood. People may be just kind of more friendly to you where you live. And you should feel that this is a very fertile place from which you can grow. You know, like the whole grow where you're planted thing. That should feel quite realistic around this period of time due to the optimism that this is bringing to you. Also very good for harmonious family relations too. There could totally be an addition to a family under this influence too, keeping in mind also that there's another one of these, another conjunction in this house for you next June. But yeah, when it comes to fertility, if you're not trying to expand your family, that's also something to keep in mind, that it's much more likely that something like that would be taking place in this year. You may also feel from your core like there's a lot of goodwill and like generosity of spirit that is coming up through your energy. And so you may just feel like being more generous to people because, again, you feel like your foundation is quite solid. This should have you feeling like you don't really need to worry about your own standing. And so from that place, I think we can be a lot more generous. This could also speak to your roots. So you may learn something quite positive about your family of origin. If you're working on ancestry related stuff like research or something like this, this should also be super helpful to that. Like I would say that, again, because we're planting the seed of Venus, Jupiter in this place for you, and then we're going to come around and in a year, we're going to get that reinforced. I would say throughout this whole year, you could wind up making really great strides. So if that's something you are considering working on, I would go for it. But yeah, I would basically recommend like planting some intentions around feeling very safe, secure, grounded, like you are at home. So let's say you're coming into this and you don't quite feel like you belong where you are. Maybe you just kind of are whimsically like imagining, what if I were to move here or to there? Could that work? And maybe you're coming into this doubting whether that's possible, doubting whether logistically that's going to work out. Setting an intention on at least being in a place or a space or an energy where you do feel like you belong, like you feel like you have a sense of community around you. For one thing, maybe that brings that out in the place that you're at. Or maybe it does help to lead you to a place where you do feel that way. And I would expect movement along those lines throughout this coming year. Again, this is the seeding point of something very fortunate and wonderful that should be blooming throughout the entire year. Also, if there's any property, I kind of vaguely mentioned this from real estate, but if there's any property that you are thinking about, maybe you wouldn't really want to have it anymore. If there is a property that you're wanting, something along these lines. Also probably good to make some moves along those lines this year too, and to initiate that again around that post 11th period of August here. Also, if there's any family events coming up, any weddings or things like this, I would personally encourage, just based on this transit, to attend and just try and remain as open as possible. It's likely that there's benefits that you wouldn't really expect from doing something like that. Not to mention from like engaging more with the community where you live too. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Aries. So I hope that this treats you absolutely wonderfully. I'm very confident it will. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Taurus, from the end of July through the end of August, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in your third house. And so this is speaking to matters of communication, the like people, places, things around you in your neighborhood, in your community, your locality. This can also speak to adjacent family, so siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, as well as the people that we just kind of run into in our day-to-day life. This can also have to do with technology and things like that too, learning, teaching. So there's a lot of fortune for you in this area in this coming month, as well as a seed that's being planted for the coming year, because this is the place of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So when it comes to communication, that should be going very smoothly throughout this period of time. If there's something that you've been wanting to say or communicate, you're likely to get a better response and reaction from that. You could even get a really abundant response. So for instance, if you are thinking about publishing something, just putting it out there, and I wouldn't even say that this needs to be some big grand thing. It could be a blog or publishing things on social media and just seeing how it goes. With this conjunction there, it's much better favored for you to receive the kind of response that you're really wanting from it. Possibly even to connect you with people that feel very aligned with you, much more so then. And yeah, when it comes to charm and persuasion as well, these two in this place is very helpful with that. So again, if you're needing to make your case on anything, I would say this should be super helpful, and it would be a really great time to ask for something if you've been a bit shy about doing so. You can also come into news or just things that you're hearing, things you're picking up on in this place too. So good news, opportunities. So hearing about things just kind of through the grapevine by connecting with those around you. This could be hearing about a community group, just like a social grouping or something like this, events or things like that wind up connecting you and giving you a sense of greater connection to your community, which we also then see in the third house. And then who knows what kind of wonderful knock-on effects are down the road from you connecting, maybe with those kinds of people or going to an event or something like this. Exploring new places, remaining super open about what it is that's around you. Maybe you want to take a short trip. Maybe this is around you as in 100 or 200 miles away, and you just want to take a bit of a trip and relax and maybe soak in some scenery or something like this. That would also be really wonderfully favored with this, especially if you're going with family or friends or anything like that. Yeah, so writing, communication, especially if it carries some emotion to it, which usually I think for you it would, since you have Cancer in your third house, but something that's really heartfelt that you're wanting to communicate should get a much better than expected response. This is also where our thought process can come in too, and so it's bringing a lot of optimism and emotional intelligence to just your state of mind. So if you're working from a much more optimistic space, if you are working from a space of kind of understanding what's going on with people around you, which I know that's kind of become harder and harder in recent years, but you should be able to just kind of carry the quote unquote mental load a lot more gently and a lot more pleasantly throughout this time. And I think we all know how much of an impact that can have on our opportunities just by staying pretty optimistic and carrying that energy with us. It tends to then pull that energy into us from others as well. And so, yeah, then attracting the people who potentially even want to learn from you, want to pick up on that mental state or your intelligence, things that you know from your wisdom, or that want to share that with you as well. So great for conversation, also great for learning. If there's any courses that you're wanting to take, if there's any sort of a teaching position that you're wanting to take on as well, that can go over extraordinarily well with this alignment in your third house. But yeah, I mean, I would say it would be wonderful to just have an intention of, I'm just going to put out good vibes. I'm going to trust my instincts on what winds up coming in and responding to that. I'm going to have faith that what I'm putting out there is going to be received well. And I think that the response that you're going to see to that should be really well reinforcing in terms of kind of keeping you then open to that. So basically, carrying the good vibes, getting some really wonderful benefits from doing so, and then recognizing throughout your life, okay, things seem to go surprisingly well when I'm carrying this joyfully rich kind of energy to myself as I go about my neighborhood, my community, and my activities and my communications and things like this. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Taurus. So I hope that this transit treats you super wonderfully well. And thank you so much for being here. Okay, so for Gemini, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in your second house from the end of July through the end of August. And so this should be very helpful in terms of your sense of financial standing, your income, your sense of self-assuredness, self-sufficiency, security, stability, as well as a sense of being able to create growth, as well as like other resources of yours too. So even talents and these more non-tangible resources that you carry with you. So this can definitely point to an increased income or some income that comes in surprisingly. This could absolutely represent a raise or a promotion or something like this, an opportunity to increase your income. One thing I will say with this is you might be a bit more inclined to spend money too, like the indulgence of that Venus-Jupiter could come through in this area of your money. So if that's something that you're wanting to keep in check, it might be worth budgeting a little bit more strictly in this month too, just to make sure that that doesn't go a little bit crazy. But overall, it should be really excellent. Again, especially if like you have some extra money coming in and you're like, oh, it's fine, and then you add up, what you spent later and you didn't realize that it was going to be that much. This is also a really wonderful boon to your sense of self-worth, self-sufficiency, your ability to depend on yourself, your ability to feel secure in yourself without needing external validation, and rather that sense of validation, that sense of comfort with yourself, who you are, what it is that you're bringing to the table, being supported much more inherently then. And yeah, as I mentioned, there's a lot of potential indulgence in the second house. And so to have that conjunction there, again, I would just maybe have an upper limit on that to protect from going too overboard. But I would even say a bit of that, a bit more of that than usual should go over quite fine with these two here. But yeah, overall, these two in your second house, they should have you feeling quite safe. They should have you feeling like you are well supported, like you are recognized and acknowledged for what it is that you're bringing to the table, for the resources that you carry. And this can even wind up then fundamentally and deeply reinforcing your sense of personal values as well. There may even be a moment here where you are given an opportunity to live your values and then feel a great sense of pride in having done so. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for you, Gemini. It's pretty straightforward. It's certainly quite lovely. We love to have an increased sense of security and income and things like that. So yeah, I hope that this treats you absolutely wonderfully. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Cancer, we have this co-presence of Venus and Jupiter in your first house from the end of July to the end of August. So this transit should be absolutely wonderful for you. This first house, it speaks to your sense of self, your image, how it is that you connect with people, with the world, how it is that you carry yourself, what you imagine yourself to be capable of, basically. And so this is bringing a really wonderful energy to the way that you carry yourself. So your own personal magnetism, the like positive vibes that you try and carry, those should be incredibly apparent and much more rewarding throughout this period of time than usual. And this is planting a seed for you. This is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the sky for this year. And it's going to carry through, and then we'll get another conjunction in your first house next year. So it's a really wonderful month without a doubt, but it is also feeding into something that you can carry with you for the entire year. I would absolutely expect some really wonderful new opportunities to come through for you. And again, feeling very personally aligned, like you're in the right place at the right time to direct your life in a way that feels really good and correct for you. So when it comes to the way that you see yourself as well, so self-love, confidence, emotional expression, how you're coming off to people, there's a greater sense of compassion for yourself, of support and care for yourself, a sense of deservingness as well, which is super important for when opportunities are coming through for you. There's less self-doubt with these two here, and rather a huge amount of optimism that is very apparent in you. And that should be really what's pulling people in toward you, what's pulling those opportunities in for you, is the sense that things are on the right path, that things are going to basically work out for you, that the opportunities that you need will arise at the time that you need them, and that you're able to just one foot in front of the other, enjoy the experience of life. Also, if there's anything that you have been wanting to change up about your look, your appearance, your health, your well-being, this would be such a wonderful time to start with that as well. If you want to do a different type of wardrobe, if you're wanting to do a different kind of haircut, it would be very helpful to initiate something like that during this month, because it should go over a lot better than it might otherwise. But yeah, you should just be feeling a sense of a lot more positive attention, getting a lot of positive attention, drawing people in, drawing very positive experiences into yourself, into your life. And it may feel like a major new positive chapter, like looking back, when did this really positive change or shift in my life take place? And being able to point to this August as a seeding point, and then this year as the kind of culmination of a lot of that. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Cancer. So it is a hugely, hugely fortunate, lucky transit for you, and I hope it treats you super wonderfully well. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Leo, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in your 12th house from the end of July to the end of August. And this taking place in your 12th house. This is the house of your subconscious. It's the house of your spiritual connection. This is where a lot of the thoughts and responses that go under the surface, under the radar, even for us, wind up playing out. This is also a place of doing things on your own in solitude. We see dreams and that kind of subconscious imagination taking place in this house as well. So off the bat, one thing with either Venus or Jupiter transiting through your 12th, it can feel like there's just something kind of beyond the veil that is keeping you on track, that's supporting you, that's providing opportunities that you can take advantage of, that's kind of keeping you safe. But to have both of them there, you should be able to really feel that presence and really feel like things are kind of serendipitously or synchronistically coming together for you. Like there are paths that are kind of mysteriously opening and that are outside of your control. So it's like opportunities that you can't just create, but just seem to kind of show up. So that's one thing that's absolutely wonderful about this transit, but it is also playing out in that place of your subconscious. So feeling a sense of comfort in this place to let your guard down and to heal. So if there's any sort of conditioning, or if there's any like negative self-talk that goes on that also feels a bit outside of your control, if there's any doubt that winds up creeping in for you from time to time, or even a lot, this should be really helpful. For one thing, on its own, helping with that. So hopefully there's a bit of a decrease of that naturally, but I would say it would be great to set your intentions on healing a lot of that. And if you're doing that, and then any work that you're doing to that end of correcting some internal dialogues or some of your expectations, this should be incredibly helpful to see you through that process. It should also feel safer and like there's more reward. So if you've tried to do things in the past, I would say I wouldn't be shy about trying things that you already have. Under this influence, you're likely to get much better results. So that then bringing in a sense of emotional, spiritual restoration. Again, you should feel much more spiritually connected throughout this month as well, and then be able to feed that into the coming year as we come up upon another Venus-Jupiter conjunction that we'll have next June in this house of yours. So, like I said, a lot of the really fortunate comforts that wind up coming through for you, opportunities that come through for you, they can either show up from behind the scenes or just in unexpected ways that you couldn't quite have imagined or just created on your own. And this can give you a sense then of being really well supported, like abundance is spiritually coming through for you. You may also find yourself with a lot more dreams and much more helpful dreams. You may, through your dreams, either daydreams or sleeping dreams, get visions of what it is that would truly be fulfilling for you. And that can then help to set those intentions, to have those serendipitous, synchronistic opportunities or alignments kind of show up to help you to get to that place. And then, yeah, finally, especially when it comes to matters of conditioning. So the 12th house, it can speak directly to that, of the stuff that goes on under the surface, inner psyche, where we're conditioned to expect certain outcomes from certain behaviors, things like this. Maybe we're continually trying to keep ourselves in check because maybe when we were very optimistic or very boisterous or things like that, when we were younger, we got some weird responses, and that can then, condition us into trying to really stay in our own lanes, and that can then become a sense of inhibition, right? So this should be a really wonderful time to look at that safely, to where and it might still be very emotionally overpowering. So it might be great to do this in solitude, which is where we tend to experience these 12th house things anyway. But in those moments where you can do some emotional purging, some purging of ways that you've been conditioned to life that aren't helpful for you anymore, it should feel safer and more comforting, and like you have more support, especially in the spiritual realm, to bring that up, look at it, heal it, and release it. And then feel a greater sense of inner peace with yourself and with the world. But yeah, that is pretty much, I think, what I have for you, Leo. So like I said, serendipity, synchronicity, I would expect the heck out of that. So keep your eyes open for weird little things that show up that way. It's very unlikely that you're just imagining it. And it's a great time to intentionally connect more with spiritual guidance too. So yeah, I hope that this transit treats you super well. And thank you so much for being here. Okay, so for Virgo, we have Venus co-present with Jupiter in your 11th house from the end of July to the end of August. And this 11th house of yours speaks to aspirations, goals, dreams of yours, but it also speaks to your social surroundings. So the social groups that you belong to, colleagues, friends, beneficiaries, it usually veers positive in the 11th house. So people who are genuinely supportive of you, maybe people who either give you a leg up professionally or just emotionally, as in friends. To me, this can also speak to society generally. And so you may even feel like the community, the society around you feels less daunting, or it feels less conflictual because these two are bringing a greater sense of optimism in harmony. But yeah, with this transit, I would expect for those friendships, for connections with colleagues and people like this to feel a lot more supportive and nurturing. Like you're able to kind of open up to people and not feel judged. Like it's safe to open up to people and to connect. And especially those friends of yours, or even if it's a colleague that you kind of commiserate with quite a bit, that those connections can feel a lot more emotionally satisfying and then bring a sense of belonging, a sense of joy. When it comes to collaborations too, that's something that would be really wonderful to utilize this transit for. So certainly joining or leading groups that share your values, but it will feel a lot more aligned to collaborate with people on certain projects. If you've been considering going in the direction of even starting a business or a partnership with someone, it might be wonderful to start planting seeds around that during this transit. So if you want to have a greater conversation, you want to make a coffee date with a friend and say, hey, let's throw some preliminary plans together. That would be really great. I would aim for around the 12th for that if that's possible, or shortly thereafter. And you might be very surprised as to how that would wind up developing and blooming throughout the year to come before you get another Venus-Jupiter conjunction in this house next June. And yeah, I would expect that one of the things that would surprise you about collaborations like that is recognizing just how much you're on the same page, or how much your vision is supported by someone else as well. Joining groups, generally speaking, that are connected somehow to your values or that you feel emotionally connected to, also very favored by this. So that group connection then should go over quite smoothly. And it doesn't just have to be emotional stuff. You know, this is your 11th house. So if it's like a networking group or a professional group or something like this, this can just speak to the fertility of that opportunity, the richness of the opportunity that a group like that can provide to you in the coming year or so. And especially if you start in August. Now, additionally, like I mentioned, this is also the house of people who are able to give you a leg up. So I would expect that people should be much more favorably disposed to kind of talking you up or connecting you with certain opportunities. Promotions are more likely if that's something that you're wanting and that's really good for you. If you are going into business for yourself, if you're looking for clients or commissions, opportunities, things like that, also attracting people that will support you along those lines too. So if there's any way that you can imagine that people might be able to help you, I would highly recommend asking in August for that help, because it's so much more likely that that's going to wind up playing out quite well. And again, we may not see like 100% full results of the seeds that we're planting this August, but like I said, this is the initiation point of a Venus-Jupiter conjunction for the year. So those can continue to grow throughout the year, and then certainly by next June, it should really come to fruition. But yeah, I think that is most of what I have for you for this conjunction, Virgo. So it should be super helpful, like helping you to stay on course, to feel really aligned, to feel very optimistic about your future. One thing is Jupiter loves to be in the 11th house, and it's going to be hanging out there for you for the whole year. And so Venus coming through here, it just reinforces the sense of the connections that can really help you as you are envisioning your future. And so, yeah, I would really be putting your feelers out there. I would be saying yes to social engagements. If you're even considering starting a group, I would recommend that. And it can be something simple like a Facebook group, or a plan to, monthly or whatever, get together with some coworkers or colleagues and just have some drinks or something like this, and get to know each other better and help each other out. That would be a really wonderful way to utilize this transit. And I think that the knock-on effects would be really very fortunate for you in the coming year plus. So yeah, I hope that it treats you super well. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Libra, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in your 10th house from the end of July to the end of August. So your 10th house has to do with your reputation, your legacy, your direction in life, your career, your sense of your role and your position relative to the world. So what we would very straightforwardly expect from this transit would be a sense of recognition or praise. There could definitely be promotions, a step up, or at the very least, some movement within your career, that kind of recognition that winds up leading to a promotion down the road. You should be just enjoying your career a lot more throughout this period of time as well. Feeling more aligned with it, feeling like you know where it is that you're going, feeling optimistic that you're going to get to where it is that you are kind of aspiring to get to next. And if you have recently considered even going in a different direction or like putting a different kind of a spin internally on what your career means to you and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with that. And career basically as in, again, your sense of standing in the world. If you've desired for that to be more aligned with your sense of personal values, this should also be really helpful to aligning you then with opportunities, aligning you to the right people that can help you out to keep you on that path. I would also really listen to your instincts and your intuition regarding opportunities, because these two could wind up like kind of gently pulling you in a certain direction. Like if there is a get together with colleagues or something like that, and you would typically turn that down or wouldn't be too excited about it, there could be some really wonderful opportunities kind of in the offing. And so I would very much avail yourself to those. Additionally, your warmth, your sense of goodwill, diplomacy, the way that you carry yourself with integrity should be very well received throughout this time too. So I would really double down on that. It's not just about like the kind of cold hard facts of what is your specific training or whatever. This is more about how you carry yourself, the energy that you're bringing to the table that can be very well recognized, very well received throughout this period of time. And yeah, we could see with Venus here, help from women, with Jupiter here, help from mentors to your career or to something that you're trying to accomplish. So I would be asking for guidance. I would be opening up to people that might be able to help you with specific opportunities or with information or guidance that they're able to offer to you. This is really great for just a sense of wisdom as well. So being able to find the wisdom that it is that you're looking for about how to best align yourself for the future that you're wanting to create for yourself. And that ultimately should bring you into a sense of those opportunities that are presenting, they feel more aligned. It's not just, oh, this is more money. It's, okay, this is helping to get me toward the future vision that I have for myself. It's helping me to get there. This isn't just about how can I better survive? How can I better get by? How can I make sure that just my foundation is good? No, this is about really pushing yourself toward those ideals that you have about your future. What do you really want? Getting as clear as you can about that, and then setting your intentions, especially this coming year, on making some really wonderful strides in that direction, I think is the absolute best way that you can kind of carry this transit. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Libra. So this is an absolutely wonderful alignment for you. And I hope that it treats you super well. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Scorpio, we have Venus co-present with Jupiter in your 9th house from the end of July to the end of August. And your 9th house has a lot to do with expanding your horizons, both physically and of your mind. And so this has to do with your worldview, education, travel, the range, essentially of your experience of the world and of life. And so this is very helpful to expanding your horizons. So really great for any sort of travel or courses that you might be interested in taking, or conversations, debates that you may feel like having, discussing things, studying topics. If there are books or topics that are of interest to you, I would definitely recommend pursuing those throughout this period of time, because it's likely that that's going to have a lot more reward for you long term. You may have some really wonderful travel opportunities present themselves to you with this influence as well. And you may even just be super inspired to go someplace to experience some culture or some different landscape. And this would be really wonderful to increasing the impact, basically, of taking trips like that. So it's also likely that this is going to bring some breakthrough to your worldview. So spiritual or philosophical, political, ideological worldview. This is likely to be expanding that and enriching it immensely as well. You may wind up running into people who either wind up reinforcing and expanding your sense of your worldview, or it could be people that challenge you in a really wonderful way to take into consideration some viewpoints that maybe you hadn't before, but that wind up resonating very strongly for you. I mean, this could even be like just on YouTube, running into some different kind of a channel than you usually watch and just giving it a chance and it turning out to be something that you're really deeply interested in. Also, when it comes to teachers, guides, mentors, people who are able to kind of help direct you in your life, broadly speaking, this is really great for that. So drawing those kinds of people in. So again, if there's any sort of courses that you're interested in taking, I would definitely recommend it with this influence, because it's likely that you're going to run into some really wonderful experiences. This is also so beneficial for if you are interested in publishing. So this ninth house does also have to do specifically with publishing, your writing, your ideas. This could be like a YouTube channel or a podcast or something like that. This is very helpful to connecting you to the right audience, to getting a really wonderful response from the ideas of yours, the knowledge of yours that you are putting out there into the world. And this may be something that's very personal for you with Cancer here. So it doesn't necessarily need to be this huge kind of lofty thing. It may be, but it may just be sharing your own personal story and having that really resonate with the people who are running across it. And the benefits to that may actually wind up then being much more broad than you would expect too. So for one thing, if this is just something that you're wanting to do as a hobby, you may wind up building an audience that you didn't quite expect to, or you may build an audience much more quickly. Or this could wind up really reinforcing your sense of confidence in your own creativity, things like this. Maybe it even winds up bringing you into certain communities that you would not have otherwise wound up connecting with. You may also be brought into some like international connection somehow. So this could be like an international group that's on like a platform, like a social media thing, like through the internet. Or it could be a kind of physical group or a retreat or a like group vacation or something like this that has some kind of an international connection to it as well. Any international connections that wind up presenting themselves to you in August and then wind up growing throughout the coming year are very favorably indicated by this conjunction here. So I would highly recommend utilizing those connections, running with it. Also, I would recommend like setting your intention. Which ways are you wanting to grow and expand? Is it that you're wanting to understand a specific topic better? Is it that you are wanting even to build up a specific worldview? If this isn't something that you've really considered much, I mean, I know it's very difficult to avoid politics right now in the world, but maybe this is something you're wanting to understand, Maybe this is something that you're wanting to understand better. Maybe there's an international kind of connection or situation that you're wanting to understand better. Maybe there's something to do with the history of a specific region or something like that that you're wanting to dig into that maybe has always been kind of fascinating to you, but you haven't really run with it yet. I would really set your intentions to any sort of travel that you're wanting to take or topics that you're wanting to understand better, because this will really help for that to wind up taking off if you're very clear about your intentions with it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for you, Scorpio. So I hope that this transit treats you super well. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Sagittarius, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in your 8th house from the end of July to the end of August. So this 8th house has a lot to do with your connections to other people and your dependencies with other people. So this can speak to emotional vulnerability and intimacy, things along these lines, but it can also have to do with resources that are tied in with other people, other people's resources that are somehow tied to you. This can also definitely speak to the kind of matters of other people. So what's going on with them, basically, their state, their emotional, psychological state. We can also see some like interesting kinds of topics when it comes to questions of mortality and esoteric topics, things that are hidden, things that need to be researched in this place as well. So this is very fortunate to all of those topics. It should make you feel somewhat safer to be vulnerable with others, to develop a sense of emotional intimacy with other people, as well as a sense of like emotional understanding with people with whom you have some financial ties. So being very sympathetic to each other. If maybe there is a strength or a weakness on one or another spot, being able to look at it not just as a financial situation that needs to be cleared up, but rather a very human kind of a situation between you and someone else where maybe there needs to be some understanding and compassion with each other. Now, this is actually fortunate for combining your resources with other people. So when it comes to investments, when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to business with other people, for instance, if you have clients or something like this could be really helpful to that because you're able to positively connect to shared resources, which is you offering a service or goods or something like that to someone else, and then them offering you financial reward for that. So there should be good returns on your connections to other people. Now, additionally, then, when it comes to healing growth around vulnerability, this could be really great for understanding, like I was saying with the compassion with a financial situation and not just kind of being calculating about it, but even when it comes to the like psychological or emotional challenges of other people, this is very helpful for understanding that better. Now, is it understanding it better in terms of, oh, it's okay, it's cool, we don't need to worry about boundaries? No, not necessarily. So this is fortunate for you. It's in your 8th house with regard to the matters of other people. So sometimes we can run into this as in, this is a great boon to you to be able to understand maybe some kind of specific psychological or emotional challenge that people can have that maybe you don't have, and maybe you haven't quite understood it before. And it can be really helpful to us to understand that sometimes people are very different from us and not always in the best kinds of ways. And sometimes it's not helpful for us to get super involved in certain people. So if there's a problem with someone, it should make itself weirdly clear with this influence. So for instance, if you were like thinking about getting more involved with someone, it may feel like, why in the heck do I keep seeing the worst aspects of this person showing up again and again? That is a support for you. It's a boon for you. It's something of a kind of warning for you, as well as just then clarity about things like that with people going forward. So when it comes to your instincts about the well-being, the goodness of other people, the extent to which you should entwine your life with other people, expect benefits, but they might not always look the way that you would expect. So this could, in a wonderful way, protect you from some very complicated situations with complicated people. Or if people aren't showing up in their worst way all the time, then it can also show you, okay, yeah, no, this is a good partnership. I'm seeing rewards from this. I'm seeing the good side of this. So trust the evidence, trust your instincts when it comes to other people with this, and you should absolutely get some really wonderful rewards coming out of that. And so that kind of sense of vulnerability with other people and with yourself can be really healing and can offer you an immense amount of growth going forward, simply through understanding what's going on with other people and whether you really want to be involved with that. That may be a strong yes, that might be a strong no. Also, if you are married or partnered up somehow, this can be a huge boon for them. So this speaking directly to, like, if you're married, your spouse's income increasing, or your spouse getting a settlement or a reward of some sort, and then you receiving some benefit from that as well, since this is showing up in your 8th house. It's the benefit from that connection. Additionally, if, for instance, you have a partner that is doing therapy or just kind of working on their own sense of confidence, their own sense of security and stability and self-sufficiency and things like that, this can also be a really wonderful emotional benefit to you from the effort that they are putting into their own emotional and material resources. And yeah, to me also, patterns of codependency, patterns of looking to other people for assurance, things like this, where we wind up dependent upon other people, that tends to show up in the 8th house. And so there may be some patterns to that. Usually we are playing out patterns in this place. But I would expect also a major benefit in this area related to that. So if there are any patterns that have been frustrating for you, sometimes we can be super aware of this and just not know how to get out of that kind of cycle or patterns of relating with others. This should be really helpful to making that feel safer to change, to making it feel easier to change, and feeling like the reward or the outcome of that, the result of the effort that you put into that, being much greater than it usually is. So I would definitely set some strong intentions to understand clearly where other people are coming from, for better and worse, so that you can make your decisions accordingly, and to have mutually beneficial connections with other people, and to release any patterns that may have frustrated you, or to build up some patterns that you've been trying to for some time, and maybe it's felt difficult for a while, but it should feel a lot easier throughout this coming month for sure, and then really throughout the coming year, because this is a seeding point of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, and we will actually get another one of those next June as well in this house of yours. So it is a really great time to set all of those intentions. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for you, Sagittarius. So I hope that this transit treats you super well, and thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Capricorn, we have Venus co-present with Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th house from the end of July to the end of August. And the 7th house has to do with other people, generally speaking. So primarily your one-on-one relationships with other people. This can be romantic partnerships, but this can also be business partnerships, close friends, anyone that you really like connect with on an individual basis, where it's you and them. This can also play into just how you experience other people, generally speaking. So this is likely to have other people treating you a lot better, being quite a bit more respectful toward you. There should be a lot of benefits to this area in the coming month, and then with some continuous effects for the coming year, because this is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction seeding point for the year. And then next June, we'll get another conjunction of these two in Cancer in this house of yours. So it's kind of playing out throughout the year. So I would expect a proliferation of really wonderful, supportive, nurturing, harmonious connections where you feel very aligned with the people who are around you, and a great deal of affection, support, care, like taking care of your friends and those close to you and vice versa, mutually beneficial connections with other people. Now, this can definitely speak to a new partnership. One thing I would say, if I had this transit going on and someone entered my life and they were kind of presenting as, wow, this could be a really significant person in my life going forward, I'd trust it a lot more so than usual. Now, there is always the possibility that, hey, what the benefit is that a connection is bringing to you is something kind of different, that it's not just directly speaking to the relationship itself, but maybe they have great connections that can help you out a lot, or maybe they have some information that can be really great for you. Maybe they're introducing you to something along these lines. Basically, I would expect it to be very beneficial, but I would additionally recommend trusting the new people in your life a bit more than usual, because these people are basically showing up astrologically as Venus, Jupiter. So that's good. We could definitely see like deepening of your sentimental connections with people too. I wrote romantic here, but really I mean sentimental with Cancer. So discussing your emotional state with other people, being more emotionally open with those close to you as well, and having that trust there. I think that's going to be an important thing with this. It's just this matter of trust. It's important for Cancer. This Cancer tends to be a bit defensive if it feels like it's not sure if it can trust something yet. But what it really is craving is to be able to trust. And with both of the benefics here together, this would point to being able to trust a lot more. Additionally, collaborating with people should go over very well during this time. So if you've considered going into partnership with someone in the sense of a business or a social group or a project, anything along those lines, this would also be very favorable to positive outcomes and results from those kinds of partnerships. And that could also be even financially like lucrative for you, for them, mutually beneficial. Now, your own caring, nurturing, trying to take care of people, trying to make sure that people are good, being compassionate, sympathetic to people, even your like sentimental nature should be pretty magnetic to other people as well during this period of time. So that would be something to not be too shy about putting out there. It shouldn't be taken wrong, basically, at least in this coming month. And yeah, another thing that we see in the 7th house is contracts, agreements with other people or other parties. And this can be companies, institutions. So if you have any contracts that are coming up to sign, if you're able to control the date, the 12th wouldn't be the worst. You could even go a little bit, beyond the 12th there, but it should go over quite well. If you are party to any sort of legal interests or whatever, this could also indicate a solid outcome, or at least some good news along the way coming in this month. Also, if you are considering seeking legal counsel, that should also be pretty trustworthy and solid for you in this given month with this conjunction there. But yeah, I think that's a lot of what I have for you, Capricorn. So I would also just not be too shy about asking for things. People are generally favorably disposed to you with these two going through your 7th house. So don't be too shy to ask for some favors and to try to establish some mutually beneficial connections with people. But yeah, I hope that it treats you super well, and thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Aquarius, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in Cancer in your second house from the end of July to the end of August. And so your sixth house kind of covers a bit of different topics: your routine, your everyday environment, your plans, your skill set, your work and like coworkers, the actual tasks you do. And it also has a lot of bearing on your health. So this should be great for your health. If there have been any concerns that have come up recently, we should see some pretty solid breakthroughs, some pretty solid understanding of what's going on in a very beneficial way with this conjunction there. If there haven't been any concerns recently, if you are looking potentially maybe for a new doctor or something like that, that would be great to set your intentions on throughout this time. But additionally, just making sure that you are emotionally connected, that you feel like at least to a significant extent, your routine, your everyday routine has some sense of genuine connection to you and what you're wanting. So it's not just going through the motions. It's not just doing what's expected of you. It feels like you are contributing to something that is genuinely meaningful to you. That would be really great to focus on creating more of that basically in your routine, but also then when it comes to your health. So your sense of emotional well-being, your sense of comfort in your day-to-day life, your sense of taking care of yourself emotionally and physically, nurturing yourself, self-care, things like this should also be very helpful to your health as well. Yeah, so when it comes to your routine, making sure that there's some joy, some pleasure, some sense of it really supporting the life that you're trying to create for yourself. So maybe that's as simple as just listening to more music as you're doing things, or bringing more like creative habits or hobbies or things like that into your routine. Maybe it's going for walks more. Maybe it's taking more breaks if you feel like you've been overworking. I would expect for you to feel pretty busy or like in demand, because your skill set, what it is that you're bringing to the table, that can look very beneficial or favorable. And so people might be kind of drawn to that of asking you for certain favors and things like that. And that should feel pretty good. But again, if it is a lot to handle, then creating some of those boundaries for now, just making sure that you're creating some space for yourself and for your own joy, will also be kind of important. But generally speaking, work should feel more harmonious and like the results are more aligned with what you're aiming for. So sometimes it can feel like we're kind of spinning our wheels. We are coming out of a Mercury retrograde right now, so that may definitely have been the case, but this should help you to feel like, okay, the work that I'm doing, I can see the results and I'm satisfied with the results much more so than usual. And yeah, when it comes to harmony in your work, also with coworkers, with clients, with the people that you're working with on a daily basis, those connections should also be quite a bit more harmonious and beneficial. Like you feel like you're not really working at cross purposes with each other. So these two together here is also really important when it comes to this transit. So if you have pets, this is likely to have you really enjoying those connections and those relationships and wanting to take super good care of them, wanting to, really dote on them a lot. And that should be a source of a lot of satisfaction in August. But additionally, then just the everyday comforts of your home, of your community, if you have a garden or something like that, that is a part of your routine, really enjoying nurturing things, and then getting a sense of gratitude, of joy through that, being able to take care of things. So having something to nurture, having something to take care of. If you don't already have a pet, I would not be surprised if you wind up getting one, if not this month, then this year, because this is the Venus-Jupiter kind of seeding point of that conjunction for the year. And then additionally, next June, we'll get another one of these in Cancer in your 6th house. So really a lot of this is going to be flowing into the coming year. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if another, critter, or maybe your first little critter, winds up finding itself to you in the coming year or so, and really getting a lot of satisfaction out of that connection, and possibly a major boon to your own health. But yeah, I think that's a lot of what I have for you, Aquarius. So, also if there's any sort of like organization or just changing your routine, changing how you are productive to make it more satisfying and less of feeling like you're just kind of going through the motions, that is all really great to set your intentions on with this conjunction, because it should happen more smoothly. It should happen with greater results and greater satisfaction. But yeah, I hope that this transit treats you super well, and thank you so much for being here. All right, so for Pisces, we have Venus and Jupiter co-present in Cancer in your 5th house from the end of July through the end of August. And this is your 5th house of children, but also of your sense of personal creative expression. So we can see your interests, your hobbies, your creativity, your craft, what you really enjoy. So movies, music, things like that can also show up here, as well as any activities you enjoy. If you love cooking, if you love reading, if you love getting together with friends and hanging out and chatting, if you love connecting with certain online communities, things like that. Whatever you do for joy, for pleasure, that shows up in this house. We can also sometimes see some romantic connections in this place too. And so this should be really wonderful for a sense of creative productivity and satisfaction. So feeling like you really love the creative output that you are engaging in, if you are a creative type, as well as a proliferation of creative works as well. If you've been looking for any sort of creative classes or hobby classes or like social group activities, things like that, that is an interest you're wanting to get into, this should connect you with that, bring that basically to your path. But again, when it just comes to like your pleasure, your joy, your ability to enjoy the things that speak to you, this is really enriching that. So if you love going to shows like concerts or whatever, this would be an even heightened experience of that joy. I also would not be surprised to see something new showing up here too. So there could be some new interests or creative projects or something like that that are really emotionally fulfilling that you haven't quite experienced yet. So this could be just really great timing for connecting you with something that you will in turn really love and wind up identifying with. If you are an athletic type at all, this would also be very favorable to results of, especially if you're in competitive sports or something like this. If you, for instance, just like play tennis for fun, it would probably result in more wins, even if it's not competitive, You could even have like a breakthrough with your game or something like that. You may even wind up like investing more in a hobby or a creative interest or something. There is like a slight risk of going overboard with that expenditure, but the result of at least some investment in this area should be pretty solid. If you have children or there are children around you in your life that you connect with, this should make those relationships also really enriched. So being able to connect with them, being able to share joy with them, to, engage in creative activities or like teaching them things that that you enjoy to do and getting a really great response. If you have children, and I don't know about all of the school years around the world, but I know that this is like back to school time basically in a lot of the US. And so this could be a really wonderful, like optimistic time for the coming school year for your kids. This could even be like, if you have a late vacation or like, okay, the school year's about to start, let's have some cookouts or whatever and just have fun. Like it's the fact that the joy and satisfaction that you're able to get through those connections, that's heightened. And it could prove to be incredibly meaningful memories with Cancer here that you're creating with your children throughout this time. So I would super not be shy to kind of insist a bit on, no, we need to like come together as a family, do some activities together. This is exciting. I know it's something that you're interested in. Let's just like have fun, you know? Maybe you even want to go on a short trip with them or something like this. Also, when it comes to your own childlike nature. So you could be kind of rediscovering some of that joy either by, you know, hanging out with kids and experiencing the joy that they have, but also it doesn't have to involve children. It could just be like your own youthful nature or your own excitability, feeling kind of young, feeling like a lot of that weight that we wind up taking on of everything being serious and so forth, just being able to throw that off, you know, and genuinely enjoy things. Also, when it comes to like loving connections with people, and again, I don't really think that there's any area of our chart that has to be strictly romantic in terms of connections. This could just be great friends that you resonate with, that you can have fun with, almost like even if, you know, you are well into your years or whatever, that you feel like a kid with when you hang out with them, that you just have fun with, being really open to an emotional enrichment of those connections. Additionally, to me, this is one of the places where the quote muse shows up for us. And so when it comes to inspiration, this is a place I think of a lot of our spirit. And so we can get really wonderfully inspired in this place in a way for you, since you have Cancer here, just kind of naturally. This is a place of a lot of emotional richness and that being really inspiring to you. But that is getting, again, really heightened. So greater satisfaction from the results of your inspiration. So being able to realize it in a way that feels more satisfying and richer for you, more expressive. This could be a breakthrough. Again, if you're a creative type, I would expect for things to be going so well in August. This could even wind up kind of on overdrive. So particularly around the middle of the month when this conjunction is going exact, I would do your best to be writing down all of your creative ideas, the inspiration, that muse when it kicks in. Just write it down, because there might be a lot of different stuff to where you wind up kind of forgetting some of them later if you don't write it down. And I wouldn't be surprised, because there can be some serendipity with a lot of this as well. And so you may just be like scrolling YouTube or something like this and run across a craft or an interest or a hobby. This could totally even be a spiritual, like a divination practice. It could be, or it could be like an intellectual or a cerebral kind of topic. This could be like a topic of history or something that really winds up resonating with you. And it's like, well, I just happened upon this thing. And then it wound up, you know, opening this whole can of worms of something that I wound up getting super into for years, you know. But yeah, I think that is basically what I've got for you, Pisces. So it's a really wonderful one. And I hope that it treats you super well. And thank you so much for being here.